I have great pleasure to introduce to you our first keynote speaker. This is Judith van der Poel, who presented to us a wonderful pavilion, the Netherlands Pavilion, yesterday. Judith studied garden and landscape design in Velp and graduated from the Academy of Architecture in Amsterdam as a landscape architect. In addition to being the company's landscape designer, in 2019 Judith became the director and owner of Niek Landscapes. Judith excels in creating strong, detailed concept designs in which positive, existing landscape qualities are preserved and serve as a design foundation. Someone's just turned the camera on. Judith has a considerable amount of experience in landscape design projects in the Netherlands and in China. And she and her company have been involved in designs of various scales, both locally in the Netherlands and abroad, where the appropriate application of the Green City principles became important added value events for their projects. Judith today will present her work with universities and municipalities to combine knowledge of the effects of green solutions for typical areas in cities. Together, they have investigated which types of locations have the largest impact on city health. I welcome Judith to the stage.
Thank you for this introduction. Not put it too close to my... Okay, yes, this is me, as you can see. This is our office, as Audrey already explained. The office is already 40 years in the Netherlands based. We work on a very beautiful location. This is the office. We work on a green island in Amsterdam. So we're very happy to be here and be in a green environment, not only for ourselves but also the clients who really like it. So that's very impressive. I don't know if you recognize me, but that's me, almost 20 years ago. What we said, we work a lot in China. And Niek is indeed the founder and still advisor of the office. So he will also come to Doha tomorrow. We will host the National Day together with the whole team. So that's nice. We work indeed a lot for Green City principal parks. And in China they really like our ideas about flood control, agriculture. So the Dutch knowledge is widely known all over the world. But we mostly produce really green projects. And this is indeed one of the first projects we did in south of Holland. It's a theme park, an existing castle. It has really cultural gardens, but also theme gardens like Acer gardens. So it was really a lot of inspiring for a lot of people who love gardening. But also natural gardens where there was a mini golf integrated in design. So really to have people experience green in another way. Recently we also did a lot of, nice that the air comes up, that the green roofs in Amsterdam are also more and more a hot topic, because a lot of parking is going underneath. So also to make a green living area for the people in the neighborhood is very important. But in China we also make a lot of riverfront parks. That is also a hot topic because in China the city expands to the other side of the river, so there's also a lot of need for parks around the riverbank. And this is in Warsaw. Here it was an existing park with a lot of lawn, and here we added this planting layer of Dutch tulips and Dutch mixed plant use. So it's also very nice to make it more green all over the world. One of the biggest projects of our office was the Floriade. It's also an expo like here. It was 2002, and the theme was Feel the Art of Nature. Here, actually the Green City philosophy was born. It was one of the entries, like yesterday we saw. This was an entry of the Green City. And it was, for example, of tulips, of course. It marked the theme of the park, Feel the Art of Nature. And with different flowering times, there was always a nice area to see. On the other hand, there was also a lot of mixes of plants. This is also good for biodiversity, but also a water garden. So with this Green City philosophy, not only the parks should look beautiful, but they have an extra load, of course. So cleaning the water, adding for the biodiversity. So all these extra effects of green were more and more important with the green city guidelines. At the moment, we also had the largest solar panel roof at the world. And this was, the indoor exhibition was held there, and also the park was going half underneath. So it was a really green event. In 2010, we won the competition of the World Expo in Shanghai. Here was an industrial area, and we kept 2 of the cranes. We wanted to make the hanging gardens of Shanghai, but the government said we don't want to see this ugly industry anymore, so that was quite a big challenge. But in the end, we were happy that we could keep 2 of the cranes, and there were beautiful platforms, the relics of the historical time. We mostly focused on greening the park because the expo was very busy. Many people were stressed out, so we really wanted to create a green area where people could have a good rest. And as you can see, we integrated the flood wall as well, and we kept open views to the river. So we made actually blocks of trees, and this way it was like a natural van to cool the air. Last year we went again. We only see that they blocked the view with the new pavilion. That was a pity. But what we also see is that people really use the shadow space. It was really good to see. It was really natural areas where people can have a rest. And you can also see this image that people really enjoy the large trees, and we're happy that they are staying there. I wanted to tell something about health, because a team member told me this weekend, we had a nice article. He said in Holland there was a research about the movement crisis. He says it's called the silent disaster. In Holland, every year 5,800 people die, and it costs 2.7 billion euro on cost of zorg, healthcare that could have been avoided. And so I think sports and being outside and creating environments where people can really work out or just walk around is very important. And also in between the young people, until 25 years old, already 70% of the young people in the Netherlands have overweight. And between 18 and 25 years, already 25% of the people have overweight. So I think this is really a big issue. And here it looks like a cozy image, but I know in that period that I think 80% of people just stay in their houses with air conditioning, or in the malls with air conditioning. So I think this is also a big challenge for the landscape architects to really create good spaces to recreate and sport. But we're also talking here about the research project we did. It's called From Research to Design. The theme was effective climate green. The book will be presented probably end of this month. So it's really the first expression of the ideas. It's a design or a research done by several projects. Top sector, that's kind of a combination of companies, but also research centers. So a lot of universities also help, but also institutions and municipalities. So it's a really wide spread research, and that's I think really nice. This is also the slide I borrowed from my colleague who works at Wageningen, so I think that's very important. He says, why do we have more attention for green? Because green is more and more needed, because a lot of cities expand, we have more and more urban areas. But we already said we have health issues, we have changing eating habits, less exercise, like we said, but also climate change and the use of biodiversity. So it's really a hot topic, as everybody knows. And there's already been a lot of scientific research about it. For example, this one I really think is interesting. In neighborhoods with more green streets, there's less use of antidepressants. So it's really worldwide news that green has a big effect on the health of people. The best results are to use green in different scales and put the right tree on the right place, as I learned in my studies. So what we already said, that green has a lot of influence on health. So for exercise, sport, but also for social contacts. Because a lot of people also in the cities nowadays are quite lonely, as we have in research. And so leaving people outside, doing the community gardens, it really helps to get a more social green area outside. The biggest effects, also from this research, have the biggest trees. So the biggest trees are the most effective on this research area, so this is interesting. And where do they have effect on? Trees, of course, well known for their air quality, but the study also says that the air quality effect on urban areas is not so high. So it's mostly on large-scale areas on the area. And what they have to do is a huge amount of trees, mix it with different species, and indeed don't make a tendency to that the bad air will loop in the street. So that's also an important thing to think about when you design the trees. But in Holland also a big issue is, not a big issue, but it is an issue, heat stress. Here it says over 4% of the deaths in the European cities during summer occur from heat island effects, so that's quite a big number for quite a cool country as Netherlands is. It was more interesting that extra trees in the city would avoid 1/3 of the deaths. I think that's quite an impressive number. That's something we can work with. This is a quite interesting graphic. It shows the average temperature in the Netherlands have rising. And so we see it's really becoming a bigger and bigger issue in the Netherlands, also this heat island effect. What's, of course, the issue is also that in the night the city don't cool down anymore. So that's probably one of the biggest things we can change with green interventions. What we did, what Wageningen did, was do research about PAT temperature. I don't know if you say it in English like this. It's a PAT temperature in Netherlands. It's actually the feeling temperature, not the actual temperature you can measure, but the temperature that people feel when they go out. The principles is calculated with the evaporation of water, ventilation, but the shadow has the biggest effect on the PAT temperature. What they did really measurements with research equipment, so they have the same conditions in the sun area but also in the shade area, and then you can see the difference, and that's quite interesting. We also saw it in Japan pavilion yesterday, but here you can also see the difference of temperature between the hot area and the shade of a tree is about 12 degrees. So it really has a huge effect on the health of people. They did also research about the tree types, what trees will have what effect of lowering temperature. This, of course, is quite a big range. It depends on the tree species, and that's also part of the research. And even within one species, you can see there's quite a difference. So it's difficult to mark how much it exactly is. But what we can see is that the actual effect of the shadow is the biggest effect for the seed. That's the biggest. So there's indeed considerable variation, but the effect remains large. I think that's the most important research. And I think what is good to see is that if you see the effect of the trees, that it goes down from if you have a hot day or a warm day, and with the use of trees it can go down to a neutral day or a slightly warm day. So that is quite a big effect of trees, and also the results on the deaths of the heat stress. So with trees we can have the biggest effect. And is it so necessary in the Netherlands at this moment? And we have, for example, here in the Netherlands, we have tropical nights in Rotterdam. But we see here in 2050, like 40 years later, the tropical nights will be much more. So that's also something to think about. So we have to take action now. So if we plant trees now, the effect of the trees will be noticeable in 30 years. So this is something to be really aware of and to take action. So this is the project we did more in detail. We did the design and the workshop. Simulation with AmfiNet. I don't know if you know AmfiNet, but it simulates the build-up of the street and the trees. the shape of the trees, and then they calculate the effect on the temperature. And latest, we make a design book with templates for all the streets and all the neighborhoods. What is the biggest effect on the climate? Our role in this project was working with workshops, because we're landscape architects. We think about what is suitable for this neighborhood together with the municipalities, and we transform them into the result into a 3D graphic. So that's kind of our design issue. What did we do for this project? In the Netherlands, we have a lot of different neighborhood types. As you can see, there's, of course, every period there's a different city style, different way of building. So what we did, we checked a lot of these neighborhood types, and we saw where's the biggest heat stress and where's the lessest green. Is that the English word? I don't think. Most less green. The least, thanks. So this is what we calculated, and we also checked which neighborhoods were into redesigning at the moment, and then we could implement the right tree implementation at the right time. So we came to 4 neighborhood types, and we started with the Volkswijk. As you can see, the Volkswijk doesn't have a lot of green. It's a lot of, it was a neighborhood beginning 1910, so a lot of buildings for a lot of people, but not so much green integrated. A lot of parking. So this is the actual existing situation. You see mostly parking on both sides, not so much green. And of course, with the high buildings, the heat will stay in, and that's of course a problem for the radiation at the nights. So we did several models to see what is the effect of the green. So in this one, we created a long lane of trees on the north side, so it has the biggest effects on the pedestrians who walk during the day under the trees. So this is the result, the existing situation and the variation with the tree lane. So you can see that the temperature drops quite a lot. So that's interesting. The research shows it drops 2 to 9 degrees PAT temperature. On the actual temperature, that's the next one here, you can see it's almost nothing, but the feeding temperature is the biggest effect for the people who live there. But also other models to research. So the tree lane was one of them. We also make green clusters, zigzags. Green clusters have also a huge effect because a big group of trees will provide the biggest shade. And we also suggest to use different types of trees for biodiversity, and also has a huge effect on the shadow. If there's not so much space, we also suggest SPUs, that's the cut trees, because that's also a big issue in the streets, that there's not so much space, so how much green and what type of green can you put in. But also shrubs and perennials, they don't really have a shade effect, but of course they will have effect on reducing the pavement and letting water in. That's also important for the infiltration and the spontaneity principle. The next one is the stedelijk bouwblok. This is normally higher buildings with the same research. And what we did there, we also checked if sometimes the street can go out and we can create a real cool spot. And so there the recreation and green structures in the city should be very strong, and the car can go out. In this way, we create the biggest effect of green areas. It doesn't have only a nice effect on temperature, but of course also the feeling of the street is much more pleasant to walk through. So that's also very nice. This is another neighborhood. It's the neighborhood of the 80s. I used to live also along this. It's quite wide and quite green. But this actually, here the people asked to have less trees. That was interesting. Because they want to have less trees because they want to have sunlight in their houses. What we suggested was if the trees around the house should be removed, we replace them with more open canopies. But there's also a lot of, central areas with a lot of paving. There we reduce them, make a cool spot, and we also remove the streets where they're not necessary. And this way we also have to create cool places where it's needed and want to have sunlight where it's also needed. So this way we also play with, indeed, the right place, the right tree in the right place. So in total, we made a package, an optimal, optimal option for each type. is the last one. It's the verbindingsweg. It means the entrance way to the streets. It's mostly a lot wider streets. And so the wider street has more options to integrate green. But also some examples, they have so much cables and lighting that it's difficult to plant trees. And then we also suggested to have a pergola XL, we call them. And this also reduces the temperature up to 8 degrees. So it also has a large effect on the shadow. I don't know if some of you are not been to this one. This is the Expo in the Netherlands, themed growing green cities. It's designed by MVRDV. We were the chief landscape architect, let's say, of this project. As you can see, there was an existing forest, there was an existing island, and this part was the campground. But it was 3 different grounds. So when the master plan divided, they make a grid around it to connect all the areas. That was quite interesting, and a really rigid grid to combine everything. And it was designed as a future neighborhood. So it's going to be a green neighborhood in the future. You can see, you can see in the top, there's a really strong grid, but in the top there's kind of a curve. And that's where the beaver is having his nest. So that's why we had to take it a little bit different. But it's nice that the nature still has influence on the rigid planning design. So one of the biggest issues was keeping the existing trees. And we said new trees have big effect, but of course existing trees, they have already such a huge ecosystem and a huge effect on shape. It's important to keep them. Many new developments in the Netherlands, the builders don't like the existing trees because they cannot build the houses they want. So they cut them down and they plant really small trees instead. So this effect of green cities is lost. So we really worked hard to keep these beautiful existing trees. So the first round we did, check which trees we can keep. Some trees we said were not really expo worthy because trees normally should look straight and happy. But this really is also, we really like it because it's a relic of the place, of the area. So it tells a story about what used to be there. So I think that's important for the culture of the place, let's say. And also some trees we marked with a special marking for the project for the footprint. So this way I really wanted to show the effect of the green, the existing green in the park. But what I said, the builders were not always very happy with the streets because there was a lot of cables and paving to be done. And they said, it's not so easy, can we not cut some of the trees, so we really made sure that they were kept. And finally, the trees were still in the location, so we were really happy about it. And of course, they don't really fit in the grid, but also that I think is really nice because this shows the story of the area, and it makes sure that the car is not as important anymore. So the green is really the base of the new cities. And so here also the water is all integrated in the design, and so it's a nice way of dealing with green, which is not normal in a way, but we hope it will be normal to keep the existing trees. This was the Qatar pavilion in the Netherlands. Here you can also see the large trees and the effect. And so it has already in Japan, the huge trees have a mature feeling to this Italy. And so without these trees, this would be a totally different expo and also a totally different green neighborhood afterwards. This was not a challenge. This was an existing oak tree. Recent research has shown that the European oak tree in the Netherlands can host up to 450 insects on one tree only. So it's very good for biodiversity. But of course, within this rigid grid, there should be a bridge there. So they said, can we not take the tree down? And finally, with a lot of extra work, they built the bridge, kept the tree, and we're really happy that it's still there. Also here in Japan, the lane of trees is really beautiful background to the garden, and we really saw that a lot of people also use the shade of the trees to have dinner and to recreate during this busy expo. The other element we made was the Green City Arboretum. The idea from the NPRDV was to create 4-meter area around every plot. So that was the plot for the expo, but also the plot for the new city. And we added this theme of Green City Arboretum. So we made a selection of which trees can grow there. This is all the trees we added. It's 600 new trees in different tree species, and they're all in alphabetical order. So it's really like a library of green. We made a selection which trees and which plants can grow there. We checked if they contribute to the green city values. So they should either work for feeding, greening, healthy, or energizing the city. And so I thought that's very important, that this green we add is not only beautiful but also has a bigger effect. So we made a lot of Excel sheets. This is not scientifically researched, by the way, this is from our own team. But it's nice that we check with several websites and several studies, and we make all the contributions. How does it contribute to the green city? In this way, the solve is cleaning the air, very good for climate adaptive. You can eat it, or it's good for biodiversity. So all these elements we checked, and this way we came up with the design of the streets. We made short streets for different reasons, because if there's a disease, a whole lane can go out, so we try to keep shorter trees, and also in this way for the increasing of the biodiversity. This is the tree specialist, also worked on the selection of the trees. This, for example, is a tree that doesn't grow natively in the Netherlands. That's a huge discussion, because he said the Netherlands has now the climate of France with climate change, so we should put the trees in that are related to France. So this has a huge discussion, because a lot of people just want to use native trees. But it's interesting to see, and so we created even more trees that are not local to the Netherlands, but we can see already they survive very well in this climate. So in a few years we can see what is the result. Another element there was the climate arboretum from TU Delft. This is ongoing research. And what they do is they check with sensors. They have the same conditions for each tree, so they have the same amount of soil, the same type of soil. And with the sensors, they check which tree can work better in the climate adaptive way, let's say. But this way, we made these 4-meter zones with trees, but also a lot of planting. So I think this is the frame of the new city. Also, the entries of some companies. For example, this was a tree nursery. They do a lot of research about climate change. So trees that can both live with wet areas and dry areas. And you can also see there's an existing group of trees. They're not the most beautiful, but we still keep them. So it's nice to make a combination. And in the end, this was a very beautiful natural area where people really relax and sit in the hot tub. So it was a nice area to be. And good to have this research that it's really this climate adaptive plants can work well. The last topic is the agroforestry. It was also a big part of the area. Agroforestry with this project was very interesting because it has ecological restoration. So not only 5 minutes. Okay. This is the total layout of so we have the combination of new trees, existing trees, and the edible trees. So I think this is a beautiful framework for the new city. As I said, the beaver was also living there, so not only for the people but also for the animals. So we made a new design for the green border that is missing there. So we selected some animals that we want to focus on. And we created some plants that are really not only green fertilizer, but also edible for the people and help for the animal chain in the whole area. The other thing we did 10 years ago was writing the green city guidelines, together with a lot of also Wageningen University. A lot of research has been done. It's free to download, so it's interesting to see. A lot of scientific research. What we asked when we were producing this book is if we can make a green city scan for some cities in China. So what we did there is make a grid of parks over existing neighborhoods, because it's needed for we said that people walk with green accessible for them. So a pocket park on a distance of 200 meters is essential. Then the next layer of parks is essential, and this way it's a total network of green areas. What's also interesting is that one park, big park, has less effect on cooling than 2 parks beside each other. So it's also interesting to see where to put which type of parks. So we checked, for example, this one in China, the existing parks, the walking distance, and the radius of the existing parks. And then this new type of parks grid on top of it, the result. And finally, we also integrated, of course, the existing parks because we cannot always make exactly on that space. And what is the goal? This one, it has the 8% of the total area was parks. But of course, the ideal situation would be 25% of green in the new neighborhood. It also depends on the density of the people who live there. But that's the goal for a really green city. And with accessible areas. So it will cool down the city, that's the most important. And cool down, but also then focus on healthier people and healthier cities. The last project, I think most of you saw it yesterday, was our project here in Doha. Here you see the start of the project. The plants were a little bit smaller, but now they're really lush, so we're happy to see that. And I wanted to show you, because yesterday you didn't see the movie, ideas about the green desert, because we think that's also very important, how to use plants to reverse this, not reverse is a big word, but to help the world in another way.
Excellent, thank you very much, Judith. That was really fascinating. And we've got a couple of questions, if we may. And can I just with that remind you to use the app to post your questions? We will have a microphone going around so you can ask your question in real voice, but this is quite useful. So we've got 3 questions at this stage, I'm sure we will come. Judith, you mentioned in your presentation about the increasing tropical nights in Rotterdam by 2050. Given that trees in cities really have the effect on temperature of shading, can you tell us how that relates to decreasing the effect of increasing night temperatures?
Yeah, indeed, that was the slide from the Wageningen University, so I don't know all the details, but what I can tell indeed is what we said in the night, the temperature stays in the city. So if you have trees, mostly they're not in the paving, so you make green areas, and the shade will indeed have the effect that the study showed. So it will cool down, so the night temperature will also cool down. So that's, I think, the biggest effect of the trees on the night temperature.
Okay, so it's more the radiant heat
Yes,
that's
yeah.
absorption of the hot surfaces. That's very clear, thank you. When you're looking at urban planting areas, do you have to consider the risk of forest fires and making it fireproof? Is that something that your designers consider?
In the Netherlands or all over the world?
Generally.
Generally. No, we don't usually do that, but indeed in Expo we had this gaps. That was because of the views. In the Netherlands we do have fires but normally what we do is indeed make a buffer zone, so it doesn't go from one side to the other side. There's not a regulation we have according to forest designs.
Okay, and with your planting of streets, of trees on streets, you have to consider access, of course, so that is for emergency vehicles.
Exactly.
So that is one way that you would consider that. You've mentioned in China that you were adding floodplains. To what extent does flood occur in China, and how the Chinese people are adapting to that risk?
It's interesting. China has a huge history of water canals, even longer than the Netherlands. So everybody thinks the Netherlands is very good with water culture, but they actually have a really good system of letting water in. But what they do now is make flood walls. But we are now teaching them or inspiring them, let's say, the way of what we have called the program in the Netherlands, ruimte voor de rivier. It means to make space for the river. So we want to have water inside the area as well, and then it can infiltrate instead of only fighting it, and then the big amount of water will go at the end, and there's a huge problem. So you want to have the water spread.
Interesting, thank you. That was one more question that's been asked twice on the app. Thank you, that's great. Are there any more questions from the audience? Yes, we have David over there. If we could take a microphone over there, please.
Sorry, I didn't see the question function on the app. I was looking for it. So. First, thank you for your presentation. There was really a lot there and a lot to take home and research further, so thank you very much. In the Netherlands, you have this wonderful health in all policies approach to policy making. And my question is about how well that is actually infiltrating into blue-green city policies in the Netherlands. Because what we see many places is that we have silo effects between different parts of society, and the medical profession is very much dominated by the curative approach, which really isn't paying so much attention to what green cities can do more for a public health benefit.
Yeah.
So my question is, how well do you think that health in all policies approach is getting into the green cities policies and planning, and if you have any good experiences or recommendations to send out into the world, what would those be?
Okay. Good question. Indeed, there is regulation. For example, we're working on a project now in Amsterdam, and they have regulations if you densify a neighborhood. So they have regulations if so many people live there, you need to have so much sport area, so much play area for the people to recreate. But that's still sometimes difficult to realize in public space, because the public space, a lot of pressure on the public space. And there's also the regulations about water. Everything has to be infiltrated. That means also the amount of green has to go up. And so these things are integrated in designs. And yeah, the other issue is that we have now a new policy that all the neighborhoods should be, we call it bodem en watersturen, so it should be related to the soil and the water. But I think in history it doesn't always went very well, because we built in the lowest and wettest areas in the Netherlands. So that also has an effect on the public space and on the environment. But for health, there are some regulations, but not typically like you have to plant this tree or you have to do that, but more the amount of green and the amount of sports, and it works. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Judith. That was wonderful. Thank you so much.